that book was intended to do a number of things. One was to undermine the myth that the best time of one's life is the time between about 18 and 28, which is a myth. It's empirically wrong. I hope you're enjoying your lives right now. I do sometimes meet people in their 20s who do, and that's great. Most people I know, once they're out of them, would never choose to repeat them again. They're terribly difficult times of our lives. We're trying to figure out who we are and what we can do and what we want to do and all of that. And added to that comes the voice of people in their 40s and 50s and 60s who say, you know, this is the best time of your life, enjoy it now. And then you think, oh my God, not only am I miserable about, you know, my love story or figuring out what job I want, but this is the best time of my life and I'm not enjoying it, you know. And social psychologists have done studies. There's a so-called U curve that people they get unhappier and unhappier up to a point. And then it goes up again. And it's different at a rate for different, in different cultures. But the one thing that we know empirically is this is not the happiest time of one's life. So why are we being sold this myth? Once again, we're being told, be realistic, which means accept the world as it is. The world is extremely limited. Your choices within it are going to be more limited still. And you'd better, face up to it. You'd better resign. And, where resigning means buying into a culture that equates growth with having more stuff. I mean, both for the economy, but also for, people as individuals. And the goal in that book was to try and provide a view of growing up, which I see as rooted in Kant. The most important difference that Kant drew, actually, it wasn't just Kant. There's a way in which he took it from David Hume. David Hume said there's a complete difference between the is and the ought. So statements about what is are completely different from statements about what ought to be. Now, what Hume concluded from that is basically there is no ought, all right? Because it has no basis in empirical facts, all right? It's just, comes from, he didn't put in those terms, but you can call it wish thinking, or somebody's trying to assert their power over you or something like that. And what Kant did was to say, yeah, these are two completely different things, and they both have force, and they both have a claim on us. And my argument in that little book is being grown up involves keeping one eye on the way the world is and one eye on the way the world ought to be, and not confusing the two, but not giving up on either one. So yeah, it is connected with some moral clarity.
And then can you identify who creates the myth? Is it sort of a capitalist myth or a Hollywood myth, a myth that we get from art?
No, it's much older than that, actually. I mean, well, look, it's interesting because it's very Western. And as I said in starting, my knowledge of other cultural philosophical traditions is small, but I've read enough anthropology and seen enough of the world to know that traditionally, and still in other cultures that are not European, it's quite different. They're not as child-focused. Growing up is something to aspire to. And the really interesting thing is no child wants to stay a child. Children want to grow up because they create, they equate being adult with being able to create things, having freedom, being autonomous, making choices. So how is it created? Look, it's also partly self-created. I mean, it's I wouldn't say, like many important ideologies, that wicked people sat around in a back room and said, this is how we're going to screw people over. No ideology gets created that way. And what I find so interesting is that it's self-supporting, that it's a myth that people buy into themselves. It was really funny when I was writing that book. If you're a writer and you see friends you haven't seen in a while, probably the first thing they'll ask you is, so what are you working on these days? And in 3 different cases, the reaction when I said I'm writing a book called Why Grow Up, they said, ew, Susan, what an awful subject. And one of them said to me, my hero was always Peter Pan. Well, the funny thing is that all 3 of these grown-ups, they're quite different. They're from also 3 different countries, but all of them fulfill my ideals of being a grown-up. They're all, I guess now in their early 70s. They're all working incredibly actively in their chosen, I guess they're all, one's an artist, 2 of them I guess are intellectuals. They're all politically active. One of them, literally physically out on the lines. They're all multilingual. They're all, I mean, none of them has, not only has none of them stopped being in the world, they continue to learn and they continue to give back to the world. And that sense of being absolutely alive is what those people equated with being childlike. Oh, I'm childlike. No, you're a really successful grown-up, although one of them is completely unsuccessful in conventional terms. I suppose the other 2 are rather successful conventionally. But so it's a self-perpetuating ideology. And I'm doing what I can to work against it.
For more debates, talks and interviews, subscribe today to the Institute of Art and Ideas at IAI TV.